have some breaking news. At least 8 people have been killed and 59 injured after Israel hit Beirut with a strike Friday morning, according to the Lebanese Ministry of Health. Israeli Defense Forces said they launched the latest attack targeting senior Hezbollah commander Ibrahim Aqil. According to reports, he was killed in the blast. Aqil was the principal member of the Islamic Jihad organization, which claimed responsibility for the 1983 bombing of the American embassy in Beirut that killed 63 people, per the U.S. State Department.
Israel's strikes come after Hezbollah unleashed 120 rockets towards Israel just Friday morning. This attack into Lebanon's capital comes after Tuesday's attack when pagers exploded across Lebanon, leaving thousands injured and killing at least 12. The two sides have traded attacks since the beginning of Israel's war with Hamas on October 7th. There have been fears that this back and forth will lead to a wider war in the Middle East. Well, certainly this news is coming quickly, and dynamics are changing really rapidly on the ground. This, of course, has been, Amber, a lot of simmering tension on the northern border. So much of the focus in the wake of the terrorist attack on October 7th has been in the south, in Gaza. But certainly it looks like the world and all of us are pivoting towards that critical northern border with Lebanon.
Exactly. I mean, Hezbollah was originally founded in the 80s in opposition to Israel, and in the immediate aftermath of the October 7th attacks by Hamas, Hezbollah started launching rockets on October 8th into Israel. A significant portion of Israelis were displaced from their homes on that northern strip, which Hezbollah claims belongs to Lebanon. And since then, Israel has mostly been focusing its war efforts against Hamas. But of course, this past week, we saw this massive pager and walkie-talkie attack against Hezbollah leaders and officials. That was probably one of the most surgical targeted attacks that we've seen in the entire breadth of this war.
And one of the most intricate attacks, obviously reporting has shown that they was able to intercept these pagers, these walkie-talkies, somewhere on the supply chain path to insert these devices before they were given to Hezbollah terrorist commanders in the field. Certainly, this would be welcome news, I think, especially for Americans to hear the targeting of Ibrahim. Aqil, as you rightly point out, was one of the masterminds of our attack 40 years ago in Lebanon that left 63 individuals, Americans, dead at our embassy there. There has been a bounty on his head levied by the U.S. government nearly since then, since the reporting showed that he was mostly responsible. So I think this is also, if that's the case, welcome news to take a senior military leader like this individual off the battlefield that has targeted Americans in the past.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw some criticism of Israel following the pager attack, alleging that because there had been some civilian casualties, allegedly one of the daughters of one of the Hezbollah leaders died because she had gone to pick up the pager when it rang or something to that effect. And obviously nobody wants children to die in war, but compared to basically every other offensive that's been launched in this war by both Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah, this was the most targeted, probably the least number of civilian casualties, the most sophisticated. And it is interesting that we would blame Israel in their attempt to root out terrorists and not the terrorist potentially putting his family in danger by engaging in those activities. It's sort of like if someone goes to prison for murder, you don't blame the judge who gave him that sentence for separating him from his family. You blame the person who engaged in the actions that led to those consequences.
And certainly one of the main critiques, and you just point out, is the loss of innocent life throughout this entire war since October 7th and even before then. So I think there are some critiques out there in terms of this precision attack. Questions as to whether, the timing of it, right? If it happened midday as opposed to at night, would that have limited some of the loss of innocent life, around these Hezbollah terrorists? But again, this news is breaking. Certainly, there's been 140 missile attacks that are pretty discriminate across the northern border. And we're going to see if there are any avenues towards working through a potential peace issue here, but it doesn't seem likely with this escalation.
Right. I mean, this definitely seems like it would have ramifications for the broader political climate in the Middle East. We know that just last week and the week before, we were told by the State Department and the Biden administration that we were getting closer to a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. How does this impact those negotiations? And then we also know that Hezbollah is aligned with Iran, which has been ramping up its escalating its tensions with the United States as well. There have been reports that Iran was behind hacking of the Trump campaign, giving those materials allegedly to the Democratic National Committee, kind of similar to what we saw with the RNC and Russia and Hillary back in 2016. And then also allegedly trying to plot an assassination attempt of Donald Trump. So what does this mean both for the U.S. domestically, as well as with its foreign policy between Iran and Israel and all of these Middle Eastern countries, and then in the Middle East, between all of these disparate groups?
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many different elements to follow here that we likely won't really see exactly where the posturing is until when we get back here on Monday, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And again, these updates are coming quickly. I think, it was widely reported, obviously, Secretary of State Blinken was in Cairo the last couple of days working towards that negotiated peace between Hamas and Israel. Those talks are still stalled because of all of these activities and because, as you rightly point out, Iran is the real puppet master in all of these efforts, playing off all of their allied groups against Israel in a coordinated fashion. But this is also a key priority of the Biden administration. They've got just over, I think, 170 days or so left in the president's term. This has been a key focus to achieve some sort of ceasefire. I think certainly the vice president's camp would welcome that news, but a wider war would certainly be met with, I think, some domestic political response here in this country, certainly. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, politically, you would, if you're Kamala, you want a ceasefire before the election because you want to take that issue off of the table. She has said that she is going to continue the Biden administration's policy on Israel, which has kind of rankled some of the progressive base, but maybe endeared her. She's gotten some flack from progressives. Sure, certainly. And so maybe that endears her more to Jewish Americans. We'll have to see that. And I mean, certainly over the weekend, we're probably going to see a lot of ramped up tensions in the Middle East that we're, of course, going to continue to follow and cover here on Rising next week. But for now, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more Rising after this.